I answered the phone thinking it was just another wedding planning call from my sister. Instead, Amber's voice came through syrupy sweet, announcing she had finally set her wedding date. My heart stopped when I heard it. June 15th, the exact same date as my wedding, the date I had announced to our entire family 6 months ago. She claimed it was the only date available at her dream venue. Minutes later, my mother called asking me to be understanding and consider moving my date. That's when I knew this wasn't an accident. I sat at my kitchen table with Brandon, my fiancé, trying to process what had just happened. My hands were shaking as I set my phone down. He reached across and took my hand, his face confused and concerned. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," Brandon said slowly. "Amber just booked her wedding for the exact same day as ours? The date we announced half a year ago?" I nodded, unable to speak for a moment. When I finally found my voice, I explained what he didn't fully understand yet. The pattern. The lifetime of always being second to Amber. I'm 32 years old. I work as a senior project manager at a tech company, a position I earned through years of hard work and long hours. Amber is 28. She works part-time at a boutique downtown, but she's always been financially supported by our parents. That's just how it's always been. Growing up, Amber got the bigger bedroom. She got the new car when she turned 16. I got the old family sedan with 100,000 miles on it. When it was time for college, our parents paid for Amber's entire 4 years at a private university. I went to state school and worked 3 jobs to pay my tuition. Every single achievement I ever had was somehow overshadowed by something Amber did. When I graduated college with honors, that same weekend Amber got accepted into her top choice sorority. Our parents threw her a celebration party. They gave me a card. When I got my promotion to senior project manager 2 years ago, that same week, Amber got engaged to Chad. Guess which event dominated every family dinner for the next 6 months? "I knew your family favored her," Brandon said, his jaw tight. "But this is beyond anything I imagined. This is deliberate, Carrie." "I know," I whispered. "Brandon and I have been together for 5 years. He proposed 8 months ago on a beach at sunset, and it was the most perfect moment of my life. We immediately booked our venue, a beautiful renovated barn in upstate New York surrounded by rolling hills and wildflower fields. We sent save the date cards to everyone 6 months ago. My parents received theirs. They confirmed they'd be there. I had been so excited because I thought, finally, this was my moment. My special day that couldn't be overshadowed. I was wrong. My phone started buzzing again. First my mother, then my father, then text messages from Amber. My mother's voice was strained when I answered. "Carrie, honey, I know this is difficult, but Amber's venue really only had this one date available for the next 2 years. It's her dream location. Surely you can understand? Maybe you and Brandon could move your date? Just by a few weeks? Mom, we have a contract. We have vendors booked. We sent save the dates to 120 people. I'm sure they'd understand, sweetheart. You've always been so flexible and mature. Amber is just more sensitive about these things. She needs this." I hung up without responding. 10 minutes later, my father called. "Carrie, your mother is very upset. Can't you 2 girls work this out? Why do you have to make things so difficult?" "I'm not making anything difficult, Dad. I booked my wedding first. I'm keeping my date." He sighed heavily. "Well, I suppose we'll have to make some difficult decisions then." That's when I knew. They were already choosing Amber. They just needed me to give them a reason to justify it. The text from Amber came next. "I knew you'd understand, sis. You've always been so mature and flexible. Thanks for being cool about this." I showed Brandon the message. His face went red. "She's actually thanking you? For what? For existing on the same planet as her?" "Welcome to my life," I said quietly. We decided right then. We weren't changing our date. This was our wedding, and we'd planned it first. I called my mother back and told her calmly and clearly that we were keeping June 15th. There was a long pause. Then my mother's voice came back cold and clipped. "Well, Carrie, we'll have to make some difficult decisions then. I hope you can live with the consequences of your stubbornness." That evening, my phone buzzed with a group text. Amber had sent a message to our entire extended family: aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, everyone. The message read, "So excited to celebrate my special day with you all on June 15th. Can't wait to see everyone there." Attached were photos of Amber trying on wedding dresses with our mother. Our mother's face was glowing with joy in every picture. Brandon looked at the message over my shoulder. "She's claiming the date publicly. She's forcing everyone to choose." "I know," I said, "and I already know who they'll choose." Over the next 2 weeks, I watched my entire family fracture in real time. Family members started responding to Amber's group message with congratulations and excitement. Heart emojis. Comments about how beautiful she looked. Not one person acknowledged that I also had a wedding on that date. My Aunt Patricia, my mother's older sister, sent me a private message. "Carrie, I'm so sorry, but you understand I have to support Amber. She's family. I hope you understand." I stared at that message for a long time. "I'm family too," I wanted to write back, but I didn't. What was the point? Uncle Doug and Aunt Susan, my father's brother and his wife, didn't respond to either wedding invitation. They just ghosted us both, apparently deciding the safest option was to pretend neither wedding existed. My grandmother, my father's mother, called me crying. She's 78 years old and one of the few people in my family who's always treated me fairly. "Carrie, sweetheart, I want to come to your wedding. I really do. But your parents are putting so much pressure on me. Your mother called me 3 times yesterday. She said if I go to your wedding instead of Amber's, I'm choosing sides, and it will hurt Amber terribly. Grandma, you should do whatever feels right to you. I won't be upset either way. But I will be upset with myself," she said firmly. "I've watched them favor Amber for your entire life. I'm not missing your wedding, Carrie. I'm not." That conversation gave me a tiny spark of hope. At least one person saw the situation clearly. My cousins started choosing sides too, creating ripples of drama throughout the family. Some sent regrets to both weddings. Others quietly chose one or the other. The family text chain that had once been full of friendly banter went completely silent. My parents' behavior escalated. My mother stopped answering my calls entirely. When I tried to talk to her about wedding details, about family traditions, about anything, I got sent straight to voicemail. My father sent me a long email about being the bigger person, about how I'd always been independent and strong, about how Amber needed them more. "We've invested so much in Amber's wedding," my father wrote. "You have to understand, Carrie, we took out a loan to make her day perfect, $60,000. We gave you $5,000 as seed money for your wedding. We've done our part. You've always been so capable. You don't need us the way Amber does." $60,000. They took out a loan they couldn't afford to give Amber the wedding of her dreams. Meanwhile, Brandon and I had been saving carefully for 2 years to afford our modest but beautiful barn wedding. I showed the email to Brandon's parents one evening when we went to their house for dinner. His mother, Carol, actually gasped. "They're holding money over your head?" Carol said, her voice shaking with anger. "Carrie, honey, that's not how parents should treat their children." Brandon's father, Tom, put down his fork. "Carrie, I want you to know something. You're already our daughter. You've been our daughter since the day Brandon brought you home 5 years ago. We love you. And we're going to be at your wedding, front row, cheering louder than anyone." I started crying right there at their dinner table. Carol came around and hugged me tight. These people, who had no obligation to love me, showed me more genuine affection in that moment than my own parents had in years. At work, I was distracted and unfocused. My boss, Helen, a sharp woman in her 50s, who'd always been kind to me, noticed immediately. She called me into her office and closed the door. "What's going on, Carrie? This isn't like you." I hesitated, then told her everything. The whole ugly story spilled out. When I finished, Helen leaned back in her chair and nodded slowly. "I went through something similar with my sister," she said, 20 years ago. She scheduled her baby shower the same day as my college graduation. My parents chose her shower. They missed watching me walk across that stage. "What happened?" I asked. "I graduated anyway. I built a successful career. I'm happy. And you want to know something?" Helen leaned forward. She's still jealous of me 2 decades later. Because living well really is the best revenge. Not revenge out of spite, but because you refuse to let other people's dysfunction dim your light. Her words stayed with me. 3 weeks before the wedding, my mother called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Carrie, your father and I have made a decision." Her voice was formal, distant. "We can only attend one wedding. We've decided to go to Amber's." My breath caught. Even though I'd known this was coming, hearing it said out loud felt like a punch to the chest. "The reason is simple," she continued. "Amber needs us more. She's more sensitive than you. You've always been strong. You'll be fine without us. And honestly, Carrie, we've invested so much money in her day. We need to be there to see it through." I sat down on my couch, Brandon immediately at my side, his hand on my back. "Also," my mother added, "we're hoping you'll understand. You've always been the reasonable one, the mature one. Surely you can see this makes sense." Something inside me shifted in that moment. A lifetime of seeking approval, of trying to be good enough, of hoping they'd finally see me. All of it just crumbled away. "I understand, Mom," I said quietly. "I understand perfectly." "Oh good, I'm so glad you. I understand that you've made your choice. I understand that you've always made this choice. I understand exactly who you are and what I mean to you." "Carrie, don't be dramatic." "I'm not being dramatic. I'm being clear. Thank you for letting me know you won't be at my wedding. I hope you have a wonderful time at Amber's." I hung up. Brandon found me an hour later, curled up on our bed, crying for the first time through this entire ordeal. He held me and didn't say anything. What was there to say? My parents had chosen. After 32 years of hoping, of trying, of being the good daughter who didn't cause problems, they had chosen my sister over me on the most important day of my life. But something else had shifted too. Along with the grief, I felt something unexpected. Freedom. I was done seeking their approval. I was done making myself smaller so Amber could feel bigger. I was just done. I took 2 days off work. I couldn't focus anyway, and I needed time to process everything. Brandon stayed home with me, working from his laptop while I journaled and thought and cried and slowly started to feel angry. Not sad anymore, angry. And that anger felt healthy and clean and right. I wrote everything down, every memory of being overlooked, every time Amber got what I'd wanted, every time my parents had dismissed my feelings or achievements. Seeing it all written out, I recognized the pattern so clearly. This wasn't about me being insufficient. This was about them being unable to love both their daughters equally. Brandon convinced me to see a therapist, just one session to talk through everything. The therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Martinez, listened to my whole story and then said something that changed everything. "Carrie, you've spent 3 decades trying to earn love that should have been given freely. That's not a reflection of your worth. That's a reflection of their capacity. Some parents simply don't have the emotional tools to love their children equally. It's their failure, not yours." I cried in her office, but they were different tears. Relief tears, permission to stop trying, permission to accept that I was enough, even if they couldn't see it. When I went back to work, Helen took me to lunch. We sat in a quiet corner of a cafe downtown, and she told me more about her own story. "After my parents missed my graduation, I was devastated," Helen said. "But then I decided something. I decided to make my life so full, so successful, so joyful that their absence would be their loss, not mine. And you know what? It worked. I built an amazing career. I married a wonderful man. I have 2 incredible kids. My sister? She's on her 3rd marriage and still complaining that life isn't fair." She looked at me intently. "Make your wedding day so special, Carrie. So full of love and beauty and joy that their absence is their loss. Can you do that?" I nodded. An idea was forming. A plan. I called my wedding planner, Diana, that afternoon. Diana was an energetic woman in her 40s, who'd been nothing but supportive through all the family drama. "Diana, I want to make some changes to the wedding. I want to elevate certain aspects." "Tell me what you're thinking," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Over the next week, I met with Diana 3 times. We planned enhancements to the wedding, upgrades, special touches. I was secretive about the details. Even with Brandon, I wanted it to be a surprise. Brandon's parents, Carol and Tom, called us over for dinner again. When we arrived, Tom handed me an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it," Carol said gently. Inside was a check for $10,000. "We can't accept this," I said immediately, trying to hand it back. "Yes, you can," Tom said firmly. "Carrie, you're our daughter now. Let us do this for you. Let us help make your day special. Please." I looked at Brandon. He nodded, his eyes wet. "They want to, Carrie. Let them love you." I accepted the check and hugged them both, crying again. But these were good tears, grateful tears. I'd lost my parents, but I'd gained new ones. Better ones. Meanwhile, Amber's behavior on social media became increasingly obnoxious. She posted daily wedding countdown updates. Photos with our mother at every dress fitting, every cake tasting, every vendor meeting. She used hashtags like best day ever and dream wedding and destined to be. She never once acknowledged that I also had a wedding coming up. Some mutual friends started commenting, asking about me. "Isn't Carrie getting married that day too?" one brave cousin commented. Amber deleted the comment and blocked the cousin. I stayed silent on social media. I hadn't posted anything wedding-related in weeks. Friends messaged me privately asking if I was okay. I told them I was saving everything for the big day. With the extra money from Brandon's parents and our own savings, I started booking additional vendors. A better photographer, upgraded florals, special lighting, live entertainment. I was planning something bigger than just a wedding. I was planning a statement. Brandon noticed I was being secretive. One night he asked, "What are you planning, Carrie? You have that look in your eye." "You'll see," I said, smiling. "Just trust me." 2 weeks before the wedding, Brandon came home from drinks with an unexpected person. Chad, Amber's fiancé. Brandon looked shaken. "Chad wanted to talk to me," Brandon said after he came home. "Carrie, you need to hear this." He told me that Chad had apologized for how Amber was handling everything. But more than that, Chad had admitted something shocking. Amber had deliberately chosen my wedding date. It wasn't about venue availability at all. That was a lie. Amber had learned about my wedding date and specifically requested June 15th because she couldn't stand the idea of me getting married first. Chad said, "Amber's been obsessed with making sure her wedding is better than yours," Brandon said. He said she's always been jealous of your independence and success. He wished he'd stood up to her, but he loves her and hoped she'd mature. He wanted me to know the truth. He felt guilty. I sat down slowly. Even though I'd suspected this, hearing it confirmed made it real. My sister had deliberately sabotaged my wedding out of pure jealousy. Not love for her venue, not bad timing, calculated cruelty. "Are you okay?" Brandon asked. I nodded. "Actually, yes, because now I know for certain. No more doubts. No more wondering if I'm being unfair or oversensitive. I know exactly what this is." My resolve strengthened. I called Diana and confirmed all our upgrades. Whatever happened at Amber's wedding, mine was going to be perfect. 1 week before the wedding, I was surprisingly calm. All our vendors were confirmed. My dress hung in the closet, beautiful and ready. The secret plans were in place. I'd done everything I could. Now I just had to get through the final family drama. And drama there was. My grandmother called me on Monday morning. Her voice was strong and clear. "Carrie, I've made my decision. I'm coming to your wedding." I RSVP'd yes. "Grandma, are you sure? I don't want you to feel pressured." "I'm 78 years old, Carrie. I'm too old to let anyone pressure me into anything. I've watched your parents favor Amber for 30 years. I will not miss your wedding. Not for anything." "Thank you," I whispered. "Don't thank me. This is what family does. Real family." That afternoon, chaos erupted. My parents found out that Grandma had chosen my wedding. My mother called Grandma, and they had a massive fight. I heard about it from Grandma herself, who recounted the conversation with surprising satisfaction. Your mother threatened to cut me off, Grandma said. I told her to go ahead and try. I have my own money and my own mind. She's been a bully her whole life, Carrie, and I'm done enabling it. Two of my cousins, Rachel and Mike, also switched their RSVPs to my wedding. They sent apologetic messages to both me and Amber. But they were coming to mine. My parents sent me a scathing email blaming me for tearing the family apart. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. They'd torn the family apart decades ago with their favoritism. I just finally stopped pretending it was my job to hold it together. On Wednesday, Amber called me. It was the first time we'd spoken directly in months. I answered, curious what she could possibly want. How could you? She screamed immediately. How could you steal my family members? Grandma is supposed to be at my wedding. Rachel and Mike are supposed to be at my wedding. But you're manipulating them. Amber, I didn't ask anyone to choose. They made their own decisions. You've always been jealous of me. Her voice was shrill and frantic. You can't stand that I'm prettier, that I'm more loved, that I'm more special. You're trying to ruin my day. Something in me snapped, not into anger but into absolute clarity and calm. Amber, I hope you have a beautiful wedding. I genuinely do. I hope everything is perfect and you and Chad are very happy together. But I'm done with this conversation. I'm done with the competition you created in your head. I'm just done. I hung up. Then I blocked her number. It felt liberating. Thursday afternoon, my father showed up at our apartment unannounced. Brandon was at work. I opened the door to find my dad standing there, looking uncomfortable and angry. Carrie, we need to talk. I almost closed the door, but I let him in, mostly out of morbid curiosity about what he could possibly say. This whole situation has gotten out of hand, he started. Your mother and I think if you would just postpone your wedding by a week or two, it would solve everything. Amber could have her day, you could have yours. No conflict. Everyone wins. Dad, my wedding is in 4 days. We have contracts. We have guests flying in. We have vendors set up. I'm not postponing. His face reddened. After everything we've done for you, we raised you, we fed you, we clothed you. And this is how you repay us? By being selfish and stubborn? I stood up. I'm only 5'5", but in that moment I felt 10 feet tall. You did the bare minimum required by law, Dad. You fed and clothed me, because that's what parents are legally obligated to do. But love? Support? Pride in my accomplishments? I got more of that from Brandon's parents in 5 years than I got from you in 32. That's not fair. You want to know what's not fair? Amber deliberately scheduling her wedding on my date to overshadow me. That's not fair. You choosing her wedding over mine even though I planned mine first. That's not fair. You taking out a $60,000 loan for her while giving me $5,000 and calling it even. That's not fair. Fine. His voice was cold now. Don't expect anything from us again. You're choosing this, Carrie. You're choosing to be difficult. No, Dad. You chose. Years ago. I just finally accepted it. He left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. I called Brandon at work, my hands shaking. My dad was just here. Are you okay? Actually, yes. I told him the truth. All of it. And he left. And I feel free. I feel free. I feel... That week passed in a blur of final preparations. I took the entire week off work. Final dress fitting on Monday, where I stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized the confident, beautiful woman staring back at me. Rehearsal dinner on Thursday night with Brandon's family and my grandmother and cousins who'd chosen to come. It was small but full of genuine warmth. Grandma gave me her own mother's pearl necklace at the rehearsal dinner. I was going to leave this to you in my will, she said, but I want you to have it now. I want to see you wear it at your wedding. I cried and hugged her. Thank you, Grandma, for everything. I'm proud of you, Carrie. Your great-grandmother would be proud too. You're stronger than all of us. Meanwhile, Amber's social media presence became overwhelming. She posted multiple times per day. Photos of her dress, the venue being set up, floral arrangements arriving, every detail documented and broadcast. It was clearly designed to show off wealth and extravagance. Every post got hundreds of likes and comments from people praising her. I'd been silent on social media for 3 weeks. Friends kept asking if I was okay. I sent private messages. I'm great. Just saving it all for the big day. Friday night, the night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. Brandon held me in our bed, running his fingers through my hair. You nervous? He asked. My parents aren't coming to my wedding, I said quietly. That's never not going to hurt. I know, love, I know. But tomorrow I'm marrying you. And I'll be surrounded by people who actually love me. That has to be enough. Is it enough? I thought about it. Yes, it is. And they're going to regret missing it. What do you mean? I smiled in the darkness. You'll see tomorrow. At 7 o'clock Saturday morning, my phone rang. I considered not answering. But I was curious. It was my mother. Carrie, honey. Her voice was strained, careful. I've been thinking. Maybe your father and I could stop by your reception after Amber's ceremony ends. Just to see you in your dress, say hello to guests. Would that work? I understood immediately. She wanted to show face at both weddings to avoid judgment from extended family members. She wanted to have it both ways. Mom, you made your choice. You chose Amber's wedding. So be at Amber's wedding, don't worry about mine. Don't be difficult, Carrie. We're trying to compromise here. No, Mom. You're trying to have it both ways. My wedding starts at 4 in the afternoon. You're welcome to attend, but only if you're there from the beginning, like real parents. Otherwise, don't bother. Carrie. I hung up. It was the first time in my entire life I'd set a firm boundary with my mother. My hands were shaking, but I also felt something I'd never felt before. Power, agency, control over my own life. Brandon hugged me. I'm so proud of you. Me too, I said, and I meant it. June 15th arrived with brilliant sunshine and a clear blue sky. I woke up at 8 in the morning in a hotel suite with my bridesmaids and grandmother. Despite everything, it was my wedding day. I chose happiness. The morning was full of laughter and champagne and joy. My bridesmaids, Jenna, Lisa, and Sarah, had been my friends since college. Brandon's sister Morgan rounded out the group. They'd all watched the family drama unfold and had been unfailingly supportive. Today is about you and Brandon, Jenna said, raising her mimosa glass. Not about anyone else. Just you two. A professional hair and makeup team arrived at 9. They transformed our hotel suite into a salon. My grandmother sat in the corner in a comfortable chair, tissues in hand, crying happy tears from the moment they started on my hair. You look just like your great-grandmother did on her wedding day, Grandma said, beautiful and strong. By 2 in the afternoon, I was in my dress. It was simple but elegant, lace and satin, fitted perfectly. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the radiant woman staring back. The photographer captured everything, the laughter and tears and intimate moments of women helping women prepare for a life-changing moment. I didn't know it then, but across town at the country club, Amber's morning was very different. I learned later from cousins who'd gone to her wedding that she'd been having meltdowns all morning, screaming at vendors about flower placement, yelling at her bridesmaids because their makeup wasn't matching. My parents were running around trying to manage her emotions and write last-minute checks for unexpected fees. My mother kept checking her phone, I heard later, conflicted, wondering if she'd made the right choice, but too proud and too committed to back out now. By 3 o'clock, guests started arriving at my venue. The renovated barn sat on a sprawling countryside estate, surrounded by wildflower fields and ancient oak trees. String lights were already twinkling even in daylight. Everything looked magical. 100 guests had been invited. Because of the family drama, only about 75 came, but every single person there genuinely loved me and Brandon. No obligation invites. No people who'd rather be elsewhere. Just real, true support. Brandon's family filled most of the seats. My grandmother sat in the front row with Rachel and Mike, my cousins who'd chosen to stand by me. My work colleagues, including Helen. Close friends from every chapter of my life. The atmosphere was warm and genuine in a way I'd never experienced at family gatherings growing up. At 3 in the afternoon, I got a text from my mother. We're at Amber's ceremony now. It's beautiful. Hope yours goes well. I showed it to Jenna. She made a disgusted face. You don't need to respond to that. I'm not going to. I put my phone away. Today isn't about them. It's about me and Brandon and the family we're choosing to build together. At 3:30, guests were seated. A string quartet played softly. The venue looked like something out of a fairy tale. Though my secret enhancements weren't visible yet, those were hidden in the reception barn, waiting to be revealed. Brandon stood at the altar with his groomsmen, looking nervous and excited and so handsome in his suit. His best man, his brother David, clapped him on the shoulder and said something that made Brandon laugh. At 3:45, I was in the bridal suite with my bridesmaids, preparing to walk down the aisle. Brandon's father, Tom, was waiting to escort me since my own father had refused. He'd offered immediately when I'd told him my dad wouldn't be there, and I'd gratefully accepted. Then we heard commotion at the venue entrance. Car doors slamming. Voices. I looked at Jenna with confusion. Diana, my wedding coordinator, rushed into the bridal suite, slightly flustered. Your parents just arrived. They're in the lobby. My heart stopped. What? They're demanding to see you before the ceremony. I told them that's not possible. You're about to walk down the aisle. I stood up, my dress rustling. What are they doing here? Diana's face was carefully neutral. I think they're trying to attend both weddings. Amber's ceremony must have ended early. My mother and father were in the lobby when I peeked around the corner. They were dressed formally from Amber's wedding. My father looked red-faced and agitated. My mother's makeup was slightly smudged. We need to see Carrie, my mother was insisting to Diana. The ceremony is starting in 5 minutes. You're welcome to take your seats, or you're welcome to leave. But you cannot see the bride right now. My father grabbed my mother's arm and pointed through the large barn windows. They could see into the reception space beyond. I watched their faces change from entitled irritation to shock to something like fear. Through those windows, they could see what I'd been planning. What I'd kept secret. The transformed reception space that went so far beyond their expectations or imagination. Diana asked calmly, "Would you like me to seat you for the ceremony, or would you prefer to leave?" My parents stood frozen, speechless. The music began. My cue. I stepped into view at the top of the aisle. I saw my parents through the glass doors of the lobby. I made direct eye contact with my mother. She looked stricken. Guilty. Desperate. I smiled at her, not a warm smile, a smile of absolute clarity and peace, a smile that said, "This is what you chose to miss." Then I turned to Tom, Brandon's father, and took his arm. I walked down that aisle without looking back at my parents, not once. The ceremony was beautiful, emotional, perfect. Brandon and I exchanged vows we'd written ourselves. His voice cracked when he promised to always choose me, to always put me first, to build a family with me based on real love and respect. I promised to build a life with him full of joy and honesty, and the kind of love I'd always dreamed of. When we kissed as husband and wife, everyone cheered. I heard my grandmother's voice loudest of all, crying and clapping. My parents watched from the lobby, too late and too conflicted to commit to being there. They'd chosen Amber. They couldn't have both. And in that moment, they realized what they'd lost. After the ceremony, guests moved to the outdoor patio area for cocktail hour. The June evening was perfect, warm with a light breeze. I was officially married, and I felt like I was floating. That's when my parents finally approached me. My mother's eyes were red and wet. My father looked ashamed in a way I'd never seen before. They walked up to where Brandon and I stood greeting guests. "Carrie, sweetheart." My mother's voice was shaking. "We're so sorry we're late. We came as soon as Amber's ceremony ended. We wanted to be here. We wanted to see you get married." I looked at her calmly. No anger, no hurt, just clarity. "Thank you for coming. The ceremony was beautiful. You can stay for the reception if you'd like." We saw through the windows. My father started, then stopped. "Carrie, what is all that?" "You'll see during the reception. Please, have some cocktails. Enjoy yourselves." I walked away with Brandon, leaving them standing there stunned. Several guests who knew the situation gave my parents cold looks or ignored them entirely. Brandon's parents were icily polite, but nothing more. At 5:30, the reception barn doors opened. Guests began filing in, and one by one, they gasped. I'd transformed that barn into something extraordinary. This was my secret. This was what I'd been planning. The space was stunning beyond expectation. The $10,000 from Brandon's parents, plus our own savings, had allowed me to hire a celebrity event designer that Helen had connected me with through her network. The barn looked like something from a luxury wedding magazine. Crystal chandeliers hung from the wooden beams. Floor-to-ceiling floral installations in whites and soft pinks created a romantic garden atmosphere. Custom lighting made everything glow. Round tables with elegant linens and gold accents filled the space. A stage had been set up for live entertainment. Everything was tasteful, sophisticated, and absolutely breathtaking. But that wasn't all. As guests took their seats, a video began playing on screens around the room. It was a tribute to Brandon and my love story, beautifully edited with photos and music. But it also included video messages from people who couldn't attend. Several extended family members appeared on screen, some of them people who'd chosen to skip my wedding due to family pressure. In their messages, they apologized. They admitted they'd been pressured by my parents to attend Amber's wedding instead. Some said they regretted not having the courage to stand up for what was right. Others simply wished me happiness and admitted the situation was unfair. The video made it clear. I was loved, people recognized the injustice, and those who'd chosen not to come felt genuine regret. My parents sat at a table in the back, watching this video with growing horror. Every message was another nail in the coffin of their denial. They couldn't pretend anymore that their favoritism was normal or acceptable. During dinner, my boss Helen stood up to make a toast. I hadn't expected this, but she'd coordinated with Brandon. I've had the privilege of working with Carrie for 6 years, Helen said, her voice carrying through the barn. I've watched her grow from a talented project manager into an exceptional leader. So I'm thrilled to announce that effective Monday, Carrie is being promoted to Director of Operations, with a substantial raise and her own team. Carrie, you've earned this through your brilliance, your dedication, and your integrity. Congratulations. The room erupted in applause. People stood up. Brandon hugged me tight, whispering, "I'm so proud of you," in my ear. My parents sat in their chairs, not clapping, looking physically ill. Their daughter was successful, respected, celebrated, and thriving without them. They'd missed all of it while focusing on Amber. After dinner, Brandon and I made another announcement. We stood together at the microphone, hand in hand. "We want to thank everyone for being here," I said. "Your presence means more than you know." Instead of a traditional honeymoon registry, Brandon and I have decided to establish a scholarship fund for first-generation college students at the state university. We're contributing $20,000 to start it, and it will be named after my grandmother, Dorothy Perkins, who taught me that real family is about love and integrity, not obligation. I looked at my grandmother, who was sobbing in the front row. She mouthed, "I love you," to me. The room gave a standing ovation. This announcement demonstrated something important. My values. My character. The kind of person I'd become despite my parents' neglect, not because of anything they'd done. As the evening went on, my parents seemed to shrink into themselves. Other guests either gave them cold shoulders or pointedly ignored them. Grandmother refused to speak to them at all. Brandon's parents treated them with frigid politeness. Then came the father-daughter dance. Traditional weddings have the bride dancing with her father. I'd planned something different. Tom, Brandon's father, stood up when the music began. He walked over and extended his hand to me. We danced to a song about chosen family and finding home where you're truly loved. As we danced, Tom said quietly, "I'm honored to be here, Carrie. You're the daughter I always hoped my son would find. You're already family to us. You always will be." I cried on his shoulder, happy tears this time. My own father watched from his table. I saw the exact moment it broke him, the moment he finally understood what he'd lost. He put his face in his hands. My mother put her hand on his shoulder, but she was crying too. The evening continued with joy and celebration. At 9 o'clock, my phone started buzzing with calls and texts. I ignored them initially, but Jenna checked social media at the bar and her face went pale. "Carrie," she pulled me aside, "you need to see this." She showed me Amber's social media. Multiple posts, all angry and frantic. Amber's reception had apparently been a disaster. The catering company had double booked and the food was 2 hours late. Half the guests had already left, hungry and annoyed. The band's equipment had malfunctioned, leaving them without music for over an hour. Amber was posting angry rants about incompetent vendors, clearly having a meltdown. Meanwhile, guests who had mutual friends at both weddings were posting on their own pages. Comparisons were inevitable and stark. My wedding looked like a fairy tale come to life. Amber's looked chaotic and disappointing. My phone rang, Amber calling. I stepped outside to answer, Brandon following me. "You did this on purpose." Amber was screaming so loud Brandon could hear her. "You made your wedding better than mine just to embarrass me. You sabotaged my vendors somehow. You've always been jealous and now you've ruined my day." Something in me settled into absolute calm. "No, Amber, I didn't sabotage anything. I just lived my life. I planned a beautiful wedding for me and Brandon. You were so obsessed with competition that you forgot to be a sister. You deliberately scheduled your wedding on my date to overshadow me, and it backfired because you were so focused on showing off that you forgot to actually plan properly. I hate you." "I don't hate you, Amber. I actually hope you and Chad are happy together. Despite everything, I hope you have a good marriage. But I'm done. I'm done competing. I'm done seeking approval from people who will never give it. I'm done letting you and Mom and Dad make me feel small. I'm just done. You can't." I hung up. Then I blocked her number. I blocked my mother's number. I blocked my father's number. I was drawing boundaries for the first time in my life. I walked back into my reception, into the warm glow of the lights and the music and the laughter. Brandon pulled me onto the dance floor. The country music singer I'd secretly booked, someone Helen's husband knew from their hometown who'd made it fairly famous, was performing. Guests were dancing and singing along, having the time of their lives. This was my wedding, my triumph, my chosen family, my joy, and my parents had chosen to miss it. 3 days after the wedding, Brandon and I sat in our apartment surrounded by wedding photos. We were leaving for Italy in 2 days for our honeymoon, a 2-week trip we'd saved for and planned carefully. But first, we wanted to look at the preview photos our photographer had already delivered. They were stunning. Every moment captured beautifully. The joy on our faces, the love surrounding us, the beautiful venue, the celebration. I posted a few tasteful photos to social media with a simple caption, "Married my best friend surrounded by love. Grateful for everyone who was there to celebrate with us." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of likes. Comments from friends and family, and even casual acquaintances congratulating us. Several people mentioned how beautiful everything looked. Some said it was the most elegant wedding they'd ever seen. Inevitably, some people tagged Amber in the comments, which I thought was tacky but also predictable. Human nature wants to compare. Through my cousins Rachel and Mike, I learned what had happened at Amber's wedding. The catering disaster had been worse than I'd thought. The food, when it finally arrived, was cold and incorrect. The band equipment failure had left them without music for the first 2 hours of the reception. Several important guests, including my parents' closest friends, had left early, making the reception feel empty and sad. But beyond the vendor problems, there had been personal drama too. Amber and Chad had gotten into a massive fight during the reception. Amber, stressed and drunk, had blamed Chad for not managing vendors properly. Chad had snapped back that Amber had insisted on controlling every detail and had refused his input. They'd argued loudly enough that nearby tables heard everything. The country club was now demanding additional payment because several checks my parents had written had bounced. My parents were scrambling to deal with debt and embarrassment. I felt no satisfaction in this. Just sadness that it had come to this at all. On Tuesday morning, 5 days after the wedding, my mother showed up at our apartment. I saw her through the peephole and almost didn't open the door. Talk to her, Brandon said gently. You don't have to forgive her, but maybe hear her out? I opened the door. My mother looked terrible. She'd aged 10 years in a week. Her eyes were puffy and red. She was wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt, which was shocking for a woman who never left the house without full makeup and coordinated outfits. Carrie, please, can I come in? I let her in, mostly because I was curious what she could possibly say now. We sat in my living room. Brandon stayed in the kitchen, giving us space but staying close enough to support me if needed. I've been a terrible mother, my mother started, her voice cracking immediately. I don't even know how to begin to apologize for what I've done, what I've been doing for years, for your whole life. I stayed silent. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. Watching you dance with Tom at your wedding, seeing how Brandon's parents treat you, realizing what we missed, she started crying. Carrie, we missed your wedding because we chose Amber. We chose wrong. We've been choosing wrong for 32 years. Why? I asked simply. Why did you always favor her? My mother looked at her hands. I don't know. I've been thinking about it constantly. Maybe because she was needier. She cried more as a baby. She demanded more attention. And you were always so capable, so independent. You didn't seem to need us the way she did. I needed you, I said quietly. I needed parents who were proud of me, who celebrated my achievements, who loved me as much as they loved my sister. I needed you, and you were never there. I know that now. Carrie, I'm so sorry. What about Amber? Does she apologize? Does she see what she did? My mother hesitated. Amber is having a difficult time right now. Her wedding didn't go as planned. She and Chad are having problems. She's very upset. That's not what I asked. No, my mother admitted. She doesn't apologize. She still thinks you somehow sabotaged her wedding. She's very angry. I nodded. Of course Amber didn't apologize. She never had. Why would she start now? Mom, I forgive you. I do. Because holding on to anger will only hurt me, not you. But forgiveness doesn't mean things go back to how they were. What do you mean? I mean, if you want a relationship with me moving forward, it has to be different. Completely different. Equal treatment. Respect, genuine effort, no more golden child dynamics. You need to work on repairing things not just with me, but with Grandma and the cousins and everyone else you've hurt with your favoritism over the years. My mother nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'll do anything. I'll change. I promise. I need to see it, not just hear it. And Mom? I need space first. Brandon and I are going to Italy for 2 weeks. When we come back, we can talk about what a new relationship might look like. But I'm not promising anything. She left a few minutes later, looking defeated, but also perhaps relieved that I hadn't completely closed the door. My father called me a week later, while Brandon and I were in Rome. I was eating gelato on the Spanish Steps when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Carrie, I owe you an apology. His voice was rough, emotional, a real one. I was wrong. I was wrong about everything. About how we treated you. About choosing Amber's wedding. About all of it. Okay, I said, licking chocolate gelato off my spoon. I've always been uncomfortable with conflict. I let your mother make most of the decisions about you girls. I went along with the favoritism because it was easier than standing up to her. That's not an excuse, it's just the truth. And I'm ashamed of myself. You should be, I said bluntly. Can we start over? Can I try to be a real father to you? I don't know, Dad. When Brandon and I get back from our honeymoon, we can talk. But I'm not making any promises. You've been absent my whole life. You don't get to suddenly decide to be present just because you finally saw what you were missing. Fair enough, he said quietly. Meanwhile, I heard through the family grapevine that Chad had broken up with Amber. He'd moved out of her apartment and called off the marriage. Apparently, the wedding disasters combined with Amber's complete meltdown and refusal to take any responsibility had been the final straw. He'd realized that her obsession with competing with me was deeply unhealthy and he didn't want to spend his life dealing with it. I felt bad for Amber. Despite everything, she was still my sister. But I also recognized that this was a consequence of her own choices and behaviors. I couldn't fix her. I couldn't make her see reason. I could only control my own life and responses. Brandon and I spent 2 weeks in Italy not checking family texts or drama. We explored Rome and Florence and the Amalfi Coast. We ate incredible food and drank wine and made love and talked about our future. We imagined the house we'd buy, the children we might have, the life we wanted to build together. Without the weight of family dysfunction pressing down on me, I felt lighter than I'd ever felt in my life. When we returned home, I started my new position as Director of Operations. The job was challenging and exciting. I had my own team of 6 people. I was implementing major projects and making real decisions that affected the company's direction. Within 6 months, I was exceeding every expectation and receiving recognition from senior leadership. Helen became not just a boss but a genuine mentor and friend. She invited me to her house for dinner parties. She introduced me to other professional women in our industry. She helped me see that I could build a chosen family of people who valued me for who I actually was. For Thanksgiving that first year, Brandon and I hosted dinner at our apartment. We invited my grandmother, Rachel and Mike, Brandon's parents and siblings, Jenna and my close friends. We also invited my parents, but with clear boundaries. My mother and father came. They were on their best behavior. They brought wine and flowers. They complimented our home. They were polite to everyone. It was awkward, but it was civil. Most importantly, they didn't mention Amber once. They asked about my new job. They asked about our honeymoon. They actually seemed interested in my life for the first time ever. It wasn't perfect. Trust wasn't rebuilt in one dinner. But it was a start. Amber was not invited. I'd made peace with the fact that my sister and I might never have a real relationship. That was sad, but it was also okay. I couldn't force her to grow or change or see me as anything other than competition. 1 year after our wedding, Brandon and I bought our first house, a beautiful 3-bedroom home with a big backyard in a safe neighborhood with good schools. We were thinking about the future, about the children we wanted to have. I was thriving in my career, respected and valued. We had genuine friends and supportive family, the real kind that showed up when it mattered. My relationship with my parents was cordial but boundaried. They were trying, in their own limited way. But I no longer needed their approval. I no longer waited for them to finally see me and value me. I'd found validation within myself and from people who genuinely loved me. Amber got engaged again to someone else, about 18 months after her first wedding disaster. I heard through cousins. She didn't invite me to her second wedding, and I didn't expect her to. I sent a polite card wishing her well, that was all. 2 years after our wedding, Brandon and I welcomed our first child, a daughter. We named her Dorothy, after my grandmother. When I held my baby girl for the first time, I made a promise to her that I would never make her compete for my love, that I would celebrate all her achievements, that she would always know she was valued and cherished exactly as she was. My grandmother, now 80 years old, held baby Dorothy and cried tears of joy. "You broke the cycle, Carrie," she whispered. "This little girl will never know what you went through. You gave her a different life." That's when I finally understood what I'd accomplished. I hadn't just survived my family's dysfunction. I'd broken free from it. I'd built something better. Looking back on that wedding day, on my parents' choice to attend Amber's ceremony instead of mine, I realized something profound. Their absence was painful, but it was also clarifying. It forced me to stop seeking approval from people who would never give it. It pushed me to recognize my own worth independent of their validation. My wedding ended up being perfect, not despite my parents' absence, but in a strange way, because of it. Every person in that barn genuinely wanted to be there. Every celebration was authentic. Every moment was real. I learned that you can't control how people treat you. You can only control how you respond. You can't force people to love you the way you deserve to be loved. You can only choose to surround yourself with people who do love you properly. Sometimes the family you choose is more important than the family you're born into. Sometimes setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's self-preservation. Sometimes living well really is the best response to injustice, not out of spite or revenge, but simply because you refuse to let others' dysfunction dim your light. I also learned that you don't need everyone's approval to live a fulfilling life. You just need your own approval and the support of people who truly see you and value you. The people who really love you will show up, and when they don't show up, that reveals exactly who they are. Believe them. My sister set her wedding on the same day as mine on purpose. My parents chose to attend her ceremony instead of mine. It hurt terribly. But in the end, their choice freed me to build the life I actually wanted, surrounded by real love, genuine support, and authentic joy. And that's the ultimate triumph. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who treated you unfairly? How did you handle favoritism or being overlooked in your family? Did you find your own chosen family who loves you better? Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you've dealt with similar situations. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like. Subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming family dysfunction and finding your own path to happiness. And please share this with anyone who might need to hear that they're not alone in dealing with difficult family dynamics. Your support means everything. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it brought you some comfort, some validation, or at least some entertainment. Remember that you deserve to be loved and valued exactly as you are. Never settle for less. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next story.